On February 1st, 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran after 15 years in exile. Within 2 months, the then reigning Shah of Iran was overthrown, the Ayatollah seized power, and the nation was declared an Islamic republic. This Iranian revolution shaped the Middle East for decades after, and the fallout has haunted U.S. foreign policy ever since. Indeed, one can draw a straight line from 1979 to Trump's decision to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities last month. The author and veteran war correspondent, Scott Anderson, has a fascinating new book revisiting the revolution and America's errors before and after. It is called King of Kings. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Fareed.
So one of the things that I think we always puzzle about when looking at Iran today is how Islamic is the regime and how Islamic is the country? In other words, how stable is this Islamic revolution? Can you overturn it? Because you point out fascinatingly that it didn't start out actually as very Islamic. There was a bunch of leftists and socialists. So how do you answer that question given the history you know?
I think the real key to understanding both the Iranian Revolution of '79 and of Iran today is that along with the religious revival within Iran, there was also a movement of anti-colonialism. The Shah was seen as a servant of the United States. And how you see that playing out today, 40 some odd years into the Islamic Revolution, is that, again, that the idea of us versus them that you see in Iran is fortifying the regime. And certainly...
So when we bomb the regime, it benefits from a certain kind of... the support of the masses.
That's right. And I maintain a discreet communication with a number of people in Iran. And what I've been hearing since the bombings is that most of them are in the opposition. They're despondent. They see their movement put back years and years because of this. There's been a tremendous rallying around the flag effect within Iran. And now the regime can tarnish their opposition as lackeys of the Americans and the Israelis. So it plays perfectly into their hands.
So what you're painting is the picture of a regime that is not teetering on the brink of collapse.
I don't believe so. I don't believe it is at all. And I think that some of my Iranian contacts have brought this up when Benjamin Netanyahu said during the bombings, the Israeli bombings, said this is about regime change. I mean, what a self-defeating thing to have said, because that again was just rallying, caused the country to rally around the regime.
You in your book, you address this so well. The central question historically about the United States' support for the Shah was, were we too tough or were we too soft?
Right.
Because, Carter was, in a weird way, blamed for both. He comes into office, this big avatar of human rights, but then, so people thought he was going to be super critical of the Shah. Then he says, you are an island of stability in a turbulent region. But then when there are riots, people feel like he should have supported the Shah, more forcefully. What lesson do you, first of all, tell us what you think happened in that history, and what lesson do you draw?
There are so many ironies with the Iranian Revolution. One being that, of course, the CIA helped prop the Shah back into power in 1953, a detail most Americans certainly did not know, but every Iranian knew about. And since 1953...
And planned, by the way, the plotting of the return of the Shah in 53, 54 took place in the basement of the American embassy.
That's right.
Which is why they went in.
That's right. And so he was always seen as the American Shah. And that's why I really feel with the Iranian Revolution, of course, you had this religious current, but you also had this element of anti-colonialism, that the Shah was seen as a lackey of the Americans. And I think people, certainly in the Carter administration, were very slow to see that, as the Shah was. So the remarkable thing about the Shah, when people were marching in the streets against his rule, he was calling Carter and saying, please come out publicly and say, I'm your man, essentially. The worst possible thing that could have been done. And he did it again and again. For a very smart man, he really made some dumb moves.
When you look at Iran, looking forward, do you think that they're likely to kind of cry uncle in a way that, people are expecting?
I don't know. One thing I feel about Iran, and this really goes back to the Iranian Revolution, is that this was the start of of this religious nationalism that you now see in every faith. Christian nationalism in this country, Buddhist nationalism in Sri Lanka,
ultra-Orthodox in Israel.
Yeah, over and over again. So this seems to be a movement, a fever that certain regimes can galvanize the masses with. And I think that if the Iranian regime is clever, it will make this attack by the Israelis and the Americans into kind of a religious attack. That it's not just Iran, it's Islam being attacked. And if they are able to do that, I think that probably it's going to give them a new lease on life for a number of years.
Scott, pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fareed.
Terrific book.
Thank you.